Welcome to the Butt Fixer Podcast, brought to you by Shane Gentry and John Van Olden. Sit back, listen up, and listen good. You're going to hear it all right because we've already done it all wrong. We're going to help you meet your goals and fix your butts. Welcome to the Butt Fixer Podcast.
Delaware, on location at Joey Fulkerson's, like Joey's garage. It's like Daryl's garage, right? So, not the garage though. We're in his.
Cool people come by here though. You know?
Yeah, except me. So this is Joey Fulkerson. Joey Fulkerson is the Delaware guitar master. He is the newly inducted Delaware Musician Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah, it's a Delaware Rock and Roll Society Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so he just got.
Thank you.
You just got into that. You're in there. I'm sure George Thorogood's in that.
Yeah, George is in there. A lot of my my friends are in there. And these guys that I respect, and, that I went to see when I was coming up.
Yeah. So Joey's been around for a while. So I'm going to turn it over. Joey's going to tell us how he got here and how he's sitting here in front of us doing all this stuff, and then we do our thing. We'll dive in and go from there.
Well, This guy was bugging me at the bar about doing this podcast.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yes. Yeah. Have you ever done one of these?
No.
Awesome.
No.
All right. First of many, I hope, man. This is like
we did sort of an interview for the Rock and Roll Society, Delaware Rock and Roll.
All right. We'll dive in, dude. So tell us, because I know part of your story is we had somebody on, when we have people on, they say, oh man, my friends listened to it. They said, oh yeah, I knew your story, but I didn't know this or I didn't know that.
Yeah,
so
right.
Let's dive in. I mean, I know you're born and raised out here.
No, I was not born here. My father was in the Air Force. And,
that's right. Okay.
And, we had five kids. I had two brothers, two sisters. And, so he was in the Air Force and we were moving around a lot. I was born in Rantoul, Illinois at Chanute Air Force Base.
Oh man. All right.
And then, I don't remember much because I was very young then. And, we moved from there to Kansas, and my little sister, Sally, was born in Kansas. Then we moved to, this is one of my first memories is us driving across country. My mom had a Corvair and my dad had this big old 57 Cadillac or something like that. And we moved from Kansas to Philadelphia. My grandmother and grandfather moved into an apartment. We moved into their house while my dad was TDY in Thailand for a year.
Oh, wow. All right.
So, and then when he got back from Thailand, they put him here at Dover Air Force Base. So we lived a year or so on base housing, and then he retired, and we rented a house in Smyrna, out by Woodland Beach,
Smyrna, Delaware,
out in the middle of nowhere, man. It was so I went to first grade at Smyrna Elementary, and then we bought the house that we're in today, right now, and went to Caesar Rodney High School and Allen Freer Elementary and Star Hill and CR Junior High and CR High School.
All right. That's where my daughter's mom went, Caesar Rodney. As a matter of fact, didn't she go to school with your sister?
I think so.
Yeah.
It was Sally. Yeah.
Welcome to Delaware. Everybody knows everybody.
I'm Sally's brother. That's
Yeah. I'm Ursula's baby dad. That's how people know me. So, yeah.
With the music bug, you mean? Oh, I mean, when we lived in the house at Smyrna. Well, actually, this happened when we lived on High Street at the Dover Air Base. My brother Steve, my oldest brother, was bugging my dad for a guitar. So my dad told him, if you can play a song, I'll buy you a guitar. So my brother learned Windy. Who's walking down the streets of everyone knows it's windy. He learned that tune. My dad bought him a guitar. So, I mean, since I was a little kid, I've been around it, And then when we moved to the house in Smyrna, my brother started to play music out with high school friends and all that. And I remember there's another great guitar player in town, Tommy Alderson. Nice. Him and Tommy were playing music. I was 4 or 5 at this point. And I remember sneaking in there, hey, what are you guys doing? And they'd be like, Get out, kid.
How
Don't
far?
bug us, man.
How far is the age gap between you and your brother?
About 10 years, I
Okay.
guess.
All right.
And so I've been around it my whole life, really. And then, like in second grade, I started playing harmonica, and I got into it. I could, pick out 30 tunes on the harmonica. Right. Yeah, that would be a great sound together. That'd be a good blend.
That's funny.
And then, I did some talent shows and stuff like that for, middle school and all that. Playing harmonica. I sang in the choir, in the chorus at high school, or at like 5th and 6th grade. So I was singing and playing harmonica. And then it was the big turning point was I was a skateboard kid, man, too. I loved the skateboard. I just got the bug one summer. Like we used to vacation at Sea Isle City in New Jersey, and my cousin was there, and he had a skateboard he made out of like cut a roller skate in half or something. Man, I could do that.
Like that. Yeah.
So I cut a roller skate in half and made a skateboard, and it was like skateboard kid. And
did you have the clay wheels?
The first ones were like roller skate wheels,
like metal wheels.
Well, no, they were like the ones you would go to the roller.
Oh, okay.
All right. I guess
like
they're wooden. Yeah, wooden. Okay. And then, of course, that started. The trend started going with the rubber, the rubber wheels and the enclosed bearings and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was skateboarding, and my mom bought me this new skateboard, and we went to my uncle's house up in Pennsylvania, and it was July 4th, 1976. It was the bicentennial, right? The 200th birthday of America. And we were swimming in the pool, and my uncle lived on the top of this big hill, right? And so I jumped out of the pool, like soaking wet, shorts on, no shoes, no shirt, jumped on the skateboard, and I start going down this hill, and I'm getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And all of a sudden, like, oh shit, like this thing starts speed wobbling, and I'm out of control at this point, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm stepping off. So I went boom, boom, 2 steps, and I went ass over teacup, man. Just boom, down the hill. I was like road rashed and freaking all ate up, and like, so I got my shit together and came back up the hill to the party, and like all my mom and dad are been drinking all day, and all my relatives are all drinking all day, and they're like, hey, man. I'm like, man, my foot really hurts, man. I'm like, walk it off, man. Good old days, Hey, walk it off. So I went, got in the pool a little bit more, but I'm like limping around. So we got back here the following day, and my dad took me out to the base hospital, and of course I had a fracture in my foot. So the rest of that summer, I'm in a cast, so there's no skateboarding. There's no, I'm walking around on crutches and the whole thing, man. I was like, shit, man, what am I going to do? So like, I think I built a couple model cars or something like that the first couple of weeks. And then my brother had left this Univox guitar. It's like this red hollow body guitar at the house. And I just picked it up one day, and like just by messing around with seeing him play and all that, I'd learned a couple things, I knew, of course, dun, 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 the riff for Smoke on the Water. And I learned the riff from Wipeout. I knew that a couple of those things like that, And so I'm just like, I would hop out, take the guitar out to the front porch out here, and just sit out on the porch and pick on this thing. And, I'm just playing what I knew, I guess. And then this neighbor, I guess he got tired of hearing that shit. And the guy, he was like an airman, lived in the apartment next door. He comes down one day, he's got, hey man, he said, I got this, here's a songbook, man, like, like, so it was like, I look back at it now, I'm thinking the guy was probably like, oh God, I wish you would learn another song, And let me try, just give him a songbook here,
That's awesome.
So I open the songbook up, and it's it's like pop hits of the era or whatever. And the first song I learned to play all the way through was um, John Denver, "Take Me Home, Country Roads."
Oh yeah.
Right. So I'm like strumming through, and I could do the chord change and all that stuff. And then the second song I learned was "A House of the Rising Sun." And I learned that little arpeggio thing that he does. So that I just kind of took off from there, man. I got the bug at that point, and it ruined my whole life.
I swear I've heard that story, but not from you, but I've heard a similar story before from people that are like, something had me laid up for like all summer or whatever, and I didn't have anything to do, and I picked up a guitar, and the rest is like history, man.
I think the same thing has just happened during COVID.
Yeah.
Because like after COVID, there's people coming out of the woodwork to play. They're playing all these gigs, and every place that I play, it's like there's 10 people playing there that I never heard of before.
And they all picked it up.
They all that they had that downtime and had nothing else to do.
Yeah. I got good at
Hey, what happened to me? I ended up putting an album out. I put an album out during COVID. We're jumping ahead there a little bit, but it was like crazy. I had just started. Well, that's later down the road. I guess we'll get to that point.
Yeah.
All right. So. Yeah. Of course, like Jimi Hendrix. Listening to Jimi Hendrix and like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Like,
Crazy.
I mean, like, and then, you're listening to that going, how the heck is he getting that sound out of that thing, And, I bought like a Big Muff fuzz box, like, it was like chainsaw buzzing, man. It was great, And then, I think I bought a flanger, like MXR flanger. It was one that you had to actually plug it into the wall. It was like, didn't have a transformer or battery in it. And it was like Robin, like Hendrix and Robin Trower had that really crazy sweep going and all that stuff. And then I got a Electro-Harmonix digital delay. It was like, what do they call it? They got a name for it, but so I had all this crazy sound stuff going on, And then, like, I guess this was like between 8th grade and 9th grade when I, got hurt and started playing. So like in the 10th grade, I think I was in homeroom with this guy, Chris Forbes. I'm Fulkerson, and he was Forbes, and they had it alphabetically at that time. And, he comes in, he's got drumsticks or something like that. I'm like, hey man, you play music? Like, he goes, yeah. Where do you live? Magnolia, which is, 5 miles down the road here. So we're like, hey, let's get together and play, man, And I had kind of played around with some cats in the neighborhood, but there was nothing really serious, There was, a couple guys, their dad had bought them a guitar or whatever, a bass or whatever, but they weren't serious about playing. And then a couple of guys that lived on base housing, they were better players than I was at the time. So I would, we started hanging out with them. And then I met Chris, and it was like, that was like the first kind of real band that we had, And that was called Orpheus. Yeah, the god of music, right?
Yeah.
And so we were playing, we played all the stuff that was popular at the time, Rolling Stones. I loved like Southern rock and all that. I was really into the Southern rock stuff. Played, Jimi Hendrix and, tried to play Led Zeppelin. Can't sing like that, of course.
Were you playing?
We had started to play like in 11th grade. We started playing like school gigs and parties and stuff.
Awesome.
People would have a kegger, and we'd go play in their living room or something, or in their garage or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Awesome.
And it was probably in 11th or 12th grade, I think. We used to practice in Chris's basement in Magnolia. His mom and dad went on vacation for somewhere for a week, and we had a big freaking blowout party, man. It was like 250 people in his house, like we're jamming in the basement, and we had moved everything out of the way. So we cleared all this space out, and we carefully marked everything so we could move it all back. So they wouldn't suspect anything. And so we had this big blowout party. There was fights in the yard. Cops came. And all that. It was like, it was crazy.
No, they won't suspect anything.
And, and that was, of course, at the time, hey, there's hot girls coming to the party that, hey, we like the guitar player, the long-haired guy. So, that didn't hurt. That didn't really hurt either, to get you into to wanting to, do it more often. So.
Yeah. Motivator for a lot of people, I think.
And then, and after that was kind of a series of bands. We had a band called Funny Money, and we were kind of doing a similar sort of thing with a little better singer. We got a better singer, another bit of rhythm guitar player. And
you still in high school at this point?
Yeah, we're still in high school.
All right.
And yeah, I guess I mean, it might have been right after, right when we graduated.
Okay.
Funny Money. So, we're 17 and, 16, 17, something like that. And we were playing bars and stuff. We would go down to Salisbury and play bars, and played Seaford and a couple of places up here. And then, let's see, after that, gosh, what happened here?
What about you graduated high school? Were your folks you going to college? What are you going to do?
Well, yeah, they kind of figured out pretty quickly that I was into it deep because they'd seen my brother. My brother was very serious about it too.
Yeah.
And I remember this. I remember my high school guidance counselor calls me down. He's like, "Hey, we're going to talk about your future." I'm like, "Oh shit, here we go." I was like, "What are you going to do?" He said, I said, I'm gonna play music. And he's like, of course, he's like, "Oh, you got to have something to fall back on."
What do you got to do to make money?
Yeah. But I mean, I was pretty dedicated at that point. I mean, and jump way ahead. I did it.
How did they take it? How'd your folks take it?
They were not. This is what my dad. I'll remember this forever because my dad said, "You want to play music? That's great, but we're not buying you anything."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you want something, you go work for it and you buy it. And one of my first jobs, I was in these ag classes at school, and my teacher got me some summer jobs, and I remember that between 10th and 11th grade, I worked at the first one was, hey, we're baling hay this week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was out in the field, freaking hauling hay bales.
Yeah.
And then, so I actually,
yeah.
and here I actually showed up and did the job, and then showed up the next day and the next day, right? So when it came time for a better job in that field, my teacher called me and said, "Hey, I got a permanent and a full-time job, a day job." So I went to work for this Appenzeller's potato field, right potato farm.
Damn.
And they had potatoes, big fields of potatoes, but then they also had a farm stand. So they were growing all their own watermelons, and they had peach orchard and apple orchard, corn, and all this stuff. They do all this stuff. So that was one of those, it was freaking hard work, man. And I went every day. I went there, and I earned enough money. I bought my first good guitar was the guy lived down the street, played with my brother Mike. He had this Fender Mustang. It was a 72 Fender Mustang, cool. Sunburst with the hard shell and the whole 9 yards. So that was my first good guitar, But I paid for it. My dad didn't buy it.
Right.
When they went to try and punish me, they couldn't take it away from me because I bought it. Yeah. And then another unintended consequence of it was, almost to a man, every one of my friends whose dad bought him a guitar, they don't play now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I worked for that thing, man. I really wanted it, and I got it, and I loved it. I played it. I played the damn frets off that thing, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I saw there's a documentary about it's called The Way the Music Died. It's like how, the business of music shifted and everything. And they had there was a band, or like in the 70s, the Hanson Brothers. You ever remember those guys? And one of the Hanson brothers, now he's all hippied out and everything. He's telling the story about his daughters growing up, and all of a sudden he says, one day she came to me and she goes, Dad, I think I want to, and he's all, here it comes. I want to be a musician. Fuck. So, yeah, crazy, man.
But the way that what he did for me was probably the best thing he could have ever done. You know what I mean?
You do it.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want something, you work for it and you get it.
Yeah.
We're not buying you anything. That was like what he said. I'm like, okay, So, but it worked out, and I still do the same thing. If I want something, I work hard, I save the money, and I get it for myself.
Yeah.
I'm not counting on anybody else to get it for me,
So how'd you make the jump? So you're playing so now you're out of high school and you're working and digging up potatoes and all that shit?
Yeah, so then it was like, of course, I'm looking for like this farming shit's for the birds, man. You know what I mean? Like, I want to get good on the guitar so I never have to do this shit again, So I dug in, and then I just started as the bands, you have band politics and all that shit. The band would break up, and then I remember I was like 17, I guess. I was 17. I had graduated high school. I was still 17, and I got there was an audition for this band, and I went to the audition. And I'm looking to play with these older cats. I want to get more experienced players. So I go to this audition, and it was for a band called Enterprise, and I remember this like it was yesterday, man. I come walking down the stairs. I drove up to Milford or down to Milford to this guy Pedro Miller's house. Pedro was the other guitar player, played a little bit of keyboards. And I walked down the stairs with my amp and my guitar. And as soon as I cleared the landing, the bass player was a friend of my brother, Steve. He said, "Oh shit, it's Fulkerson's brother." Right. And so he's like, "Oh, this is going to be the shit." Well, at the same time, there was another kid who was there auditioning. And when he saw me coming down the stairs, he started packing his shit up, because I had the reputation as a good player already, So I auditioned for the job, and Dave was giving me all kind of shit the whole time. And I ended up being the player they got, man. You know what I mean? Cool. I ended up being the top, the guy who got the gig. So that was my first real, where somebody else was doing the booking, and we were playing all these places and stuff, and
getting paid.
Yep, getting paid actually, right?
Yeah.
And I was basically lying. I turned 18 in November of that year, and I was lying to get into the clubs, saying I was 21.
Wow.
And, so I would just bullshit my way in, and then not get in any trouble. You know what I mean? There was never any. The idea is to stay off the radar of the bouncer and the club, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hang out in the dressing room or whatever, and then come do the show, and then fucking leave,
That's discipline there.
So that was,
I wouldn't be able to do that.
So, I was 17, I was playing in the clubs around here. And then, let me think about it. I'm trying to get my timeline straight here.
What kind of crowd size in these places?
Oh, they're just, bars. But bars were better back then.
Yeah, I hear people tell stories.
Yeah, you'd come into some place that was just packed, 100, 200 people in there or whatever, and all elbow to elbow and having fun, drinking and partying, and it was crazy times,
Yeah.
And then, basically doing cover stuff, and let's see. Then I realized sort of at some point, it's like, I'm probably never going to be famous, you know what I mean? But if I'm versatile, I can work, I can do this for a living, you know what I mean? That was kind of my goal, was make sure that I knew enough stuff that I could make a living at it. So we had, it's Funny Money, then Metal Johnson. We were playing Accept, and all the metal metal stuff of the day. You know, we were playing Judas Priest and Scorpions and all that real heavy stuff. You know, and so I got a pretty good education on that. And then the Enterprise was like rock and, you know, like Fleetwood Mac and Heart and stuff like that. We had a girl singer. And then it was Hyde Park. These guys were like, they were like the Rolling Stones, the bad boys of rock in our area. You know what I mean? Like these guys had the guitar players, fucking really talented cat, just had a swagger, the whole thing, man. They had it going on. So they had a blowout with him one day, and they called me up and said, "Hey, man, we want you to come play with the band," you know. So I go over to, you know, to practice, and we're playing to this guy's barn. And I remember looking out the garage door, and I see this freaking dust trail coming up the driveway, and it was like that guy Phil Moore. His name is Phil Moore, and he comes tearing up, big old cloud of dust and everything, and he's like, "What's going on here?" You know, and I'm like, "Dude, it wasn't my fault. You know, he was mad at them guys more than me." And then he comes in and we're playing along, you know, playing. He's like, "I see you. They got you." He's like to them guys, "I see you got your boy," you know. So like, but so I played with them guys for a short time, you know, and then they made up with Phil, and Phil came back, and I played in Enterprise, and then after that, I played in a band. I was the only white guy in an all black band. We were doing like Shaka Khan and Tina Marie. We had a girl singer in that band, playing all that R&B, that R&B stuff.
Which band was that?
This was called Original Concept.
All right.
With Jeff Roach and Joe Roach.
Okay.
And Elwood too. No, we were actually doing some original music too. But like Jeff was the primary songwriter, and but you know, it was like one of them things. So I learned this, like the R&B stuff I'd never really even listened to. So I got thrust into that whole scene, and I learned a ton of music, you know, like a ton of stuff about that thing. And that band was pretty good. We went through some changes and stuff like that. Played maybe 2 years or whatever. And then I joined this other band called The Cutters. And The Cutters was like a 50s, 60s show band. So we were doing like the late 50s stuff into the Motown, into the early 70s stuff, you know, the R&B and that kind of stuff. And it was like we would do costume changes and stuff like that, little skits and things like that. It was more of like, it was a show band, and we were on the same management company as the Fabulous Hubcaps. The Hubcaps are like a legendary, like oldies band. They did, you know, they in the region, or they traveled around the country, you know, and stuff. But in the region, they were like the top 50s show band, you know, like, you know, that kind of thing. And we were in the same management company as them. So
Wow.
we played a lot of parallel gigs with them and a lot of stuff like that. And that was a huge education for me too, musically, because I had missed that era. I was born in 1962. I didn't start playing till 1976. So all that music in the middle, I missed all that, you know. So that was like going to college, man, because those guys in the band, they were top flight musicians, you know. So I was like, didn't know shit, and like I'm in the middle of this shitstorm, you know. I had to put up or shut up, you know what I mean?
Are these all Delaware guys? Or
Yeah.
Still,
Patrick, that same guy Pedro was in the band.
All right.
He wore the top hat before Slash.
All right.
And well, like the Cutters. The Cutters things was we played up into Jersey, up into Pennsylvania, out to West Virginia,
Wow.
Delaware, you know, like the East Coast region, I guess, center East Coast.
Are you playing like bars, or is
we
it?
played
their
bars.
clubs?
We played like every animal club you can think of: elks, eagles, you know, moose. You played them all, man. And we played fire halls and all kind of stuff. I mean, but we did, you know, we went out to like Seven Springs, Pennsylvania, and played out that way. And we played all, it was cool, man. It was a cool gig actually. And it was fun too, because we were like a football team. We would come to a new town, didn't know one person, and just kick fucking ass, man. You know, and then at the end of the night, we had 50 fans. And then when we came back, the next time we came back, there was 150 fans.
That's cool.
You know what I mean? It was like it was a cool gig, and it was a comedy show every day, man. With working with these guys, man, it was like everyone was a practical joker and had some shit going on, in the middle of the band. Good natured for the most part, and then also, there was all kind of shenanigans going on around with everyone's personal life too.
Yeah,
I got a funny story, man. When we were playing this Waynesboro, Pennsylvania Eagles club, and Pedro would do this like skit where he was the Sultan of Smut. He would put on the turban and do and Gloria and all this stuff. Come around my house, and he did like this medley of tunes, and real, we changed the words to real kind of dirty, And he stepped off, like we had this big like road case in front of the stage, and he stepped off the stage onto the road case, and he put a hole in it, and he went down. Boom! He falls down. He gets back up. Everyone's laughing. It's like the part of the show or whatever. And at the end of the gig, we're back in the dressing rooms, and he's like, "Man, I screwed my foot up, man. I think it really hurt my foot." And like he was like chronic, what do you call it?
Not hypochondriac.
Hypochondriac, okay. Yes, of course. Yeah. It was the worst thing to ever happen. Anything happened. Right. And
no one believes him then.
Well, yeah. So he's like, "Oh man, my foot's really hurting, really hurting." So he's wearing these big red like Converse high tops, right? And the bass player Bobby Barr, he's wearing red high top Chuck Taylors or whatever, and Converse. And Bobby leans over to me. He said, "Hey man, switch this out." And I switched like right shoes with him, with the pair. Now, I don't know if he did it on purpose or whatever, but it just happened to be that foot, right? Mm-hmm. Now, Pedro's foot was like a 12, and Bobby's foot was like an 8. So, like, one shoe is like this big, and the other one is like this big, right? So Pedro's over there fucking bitching and moaning, like, oh my God. And I look over, and he's got that shoe on his foot, like, and the laces are spread out like this, man. He said, "Oh my God, man, my foot is so swollen." And we were like,
it's funny as shit.
Rolling on the ground, man. I was rolling. I was laughing so hard. He put that freaking shoe on. Oh man. And that's the kind of shit that was happening every day in that band. It was just like crazy shit going on. That was just one story that was stuck in my mind. He put that 8.5 shoe on his like almost 12 size foot, and like the laces were all like like splayed out. It was so funny. Me and Bobby were rolling on the floor laughing. Oh my God.
Are you playing like is it just like a weekend? Like you split on a Friday?
No, we would play like we would do like 3 nights or 4 nights in a club at that point.
Oh,
too.
Really?
Yeah, we would go out and play, like you'd play Wednesday through Sunday or something like that.
Yeah.
Or Wednesday through Saturday or something like that. Or we would be touring. We would play, we would play like Creek Lake for 2 nights.
Oh man.
And then we would go to Elkins, West Virginia and play 2 nights. And then go to Canaan Valley, West Virginia and play 2 nights. So we had this like little tour thing going on, stuff like that.
Was this your gig?
It was pretty much full time at that point.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yep. And well, we would do like 3 shows really. I mean, you're like costume changing and all this stuff. It was I had this job. I had a job. This is a funny story too. I guess my my dad was trying to look for something for me to fall back on too, I guess. And I had got out of high school, and I was like, not really, I was gigging a little bit, but not really working too hard. And then he says, I got my friend Jack's got a job for you. And so I went with him, and we went to Lloyd Memorials. It was a tombstone company. And they're like, we hear heard you're looking for a helper around here. So my dad presents me as the helper, and so the guy, Mark Lloyd, he says, okay, go in there, get the shovel, the wheelbarrow, and the rake, and then right around here somewhere is just a septic tank cover. So dig it up. Like they went in the office, like my dad and Jack and Mark all went in the office, and I'm out there like digging up through the stone. It's like, oh my God, here we go again. And so I'm sure they were in there laughing at me pretty good, oh, look at this, look at the rock star out there,
Digging.
On the end of like he was born to be on the end of a shovel, right?
Yeah, the music business, man.
But yeah, it ended up being a cool gig, man. I worked at that guy's place for like 5 years, but I was still playing at night, of course. And then I learned pretty much everything about that field. I learned a trade basically. So
about the
tombstone business, of course. Yeah, right. And I decided, I say, look, and after 5 years or whatever, I'm gonna go play music full time. And I told the boss that, gave him my notice, and he wrote me a letter, man, and I still have it somewhere. He said, I never thought I'd be able to trust anybody to do this job up to the standard that I have for myself. He said, but you proved me wrong. So that made me feel good. He had taught. I learned so much working with that guy about how to care for your equipment, how to be prepared ahead of time for whatever might happen, whatever. And, I learned how to paint. I learned how to do yard work. I learned how to do vehicle maintenance, detailing cars.
Framing.
Yeah.
Framing.
We did some of that work, actually.
Yeah.
Back then, so.
Yeah, crazy.
And let's see, we're at the Cutters, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And then I think after the Cutters went back to Hyde Park. Now Hyde Park had gone to like before, like we had a guy came in the band. Phil got killed in a motorcycle accident. That guy, Phil Moore, and so they were looking for guitar player, and they found this guy Carl, and Carl was the principal guitar player for the band. And they had gone to Boston, and the singer Brian Schultes had written some songs. He's writing some songs, and so they went to Boston and recorded like 3 tunes. And then they had a thing falling out with Carl or whatever. They called me up and said, "Hey, man, we can get back in the band."
Mm-hmm.
So got back in the band, and we wrote some more songs, booked some more studio time up in Boston, and made this road trip up to Boston to Downtown Recorders in Boston, and recorded like 4 tunes or something like that over the course of a weekend, and or a couple, like maybe long weekend or something, like 4 or 5 days. And then we got back, came back down here, and we were gigging around, playing the bar scene and all that, and getting a reputation as a good rockin' band,
But not all covers now.
Well, we did a lot of Aerosmith covers, and like we did a lot of cover stuff, Jake Giles band, and all the cool, swagger rock stuff,
Mm-hmm.
But we were actually had original tunes too, and then so we finished up the album at Mid-South Audio in Georgetown. We couldn't afford to go back to Boston to record, so we went and looked for a local place, and found this guy Kevin Short in Georgetown. And Kevin's still in business. He's just expanded his business into a really like a state-of-the-art facility now. Back then he was kind of low key at the time, but we got it. We got the album done and put out CDs and cassettes. And it was like a big deal, man. I mean, to get to that point where we were recording artists, you know what I mean, with original music and stuff. That was a big deal. And that was a it was a cool band, man. And but the party scene was more important than the music scene for a lot of the guys in the band.
Yeah.
And I, yeah, I know, but you also, I was more serious about the music part of it, and so went through a few years of those guys, and we were doing pretty good, man. And it was right around the time. I mean, we could have been the next, Black Crowes or Guns N' Roses or whatever. You know what I mean? We were, playing that kind of that style of music. And
What kind of gigs were you getting?
we played, some like the bigger clubs and stuff like that. The Ocean City clubs we played.
All right. What's that, like 500, 300?
Yeah. Right.
All right. Cool.
And we would still doing the high school dances and stuff like that too. You know what I mean? We still had all, all that stuff was going on.
Get paid.
And and they played all the clubs, the local clubs, that scene too, from Maryland to Jersey and Pennsylvania and stuff like that. And then it was just like something happened. We had the CD out, and there's this concert series called June Jam, and then this year was the 46th annual June Jam, right?
Yeah, that's the gig I was telling you that Ralph just played.
So we're playing the June Jam, and there's a I think it was like 38 Special was the headliner band at the time at that gig. So the Donnie Van Sant's dad had come to the gig, for the weekend or whatever, came with the band. So I met Ronnie and Johnny's dad, met him. There's this other guy that was with them. His name was Gene Odom. And Gene was like Ronnie Van Sant's like best friend, fishing buddy, man. When they weren't touring, when Skinner wasn't touring, Gene and Ronnie were out fishing, like bass fishing or whatever. That was their thing. And so he had written a book about his life, as a friend of Ronnie Van Sant and all that. So, I met him and we got to talking, and I gave him the CD, the Nothin But Trouble, or the Hyde Park CD, Rats, Cats, and Dogs. And I don't know, maybe a month later, he calls me out of the blue. He says, "Man, I played your CD for Tom Dowd." And Tom Dowd was the famous producer for Atlantic Records. He recorded like Aretha Franklin,
That's cool.
Ray Charles. Like he did a bunch. Like I think he worked with Allman Brothers and a bunch of people. Man, he was like pretty much everything the guy ever touched went platinum. You know what I mean? Like double platinum. And Gene's like, "I played this for Tom Dowd, and he's very interested in you guys. He thought the lyric thing was really great, and the band has a good kind of a thing going on, and kind of wants to get together with you guys." So I go to Brian, and Brian is the principal songwriter. I was like, "Dude, man, this is it. It's Tom Dowd, man. He's like every record that you love. He's been the producer of this." And Brian was, I think, had stage fright or whatever. What do you call it? Fear of success or whatever. I don't know. And he didn't want to do it. And I'm like, "Are you kidding?" I mean, I was like mortified, honestly, man.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, because that would have been the one chance that we had. Well, right, to come out of obscurity and actually have a shot at doing something nationwide, big time. You know what I mean? And you couldn't have gotten any better than Tom Dowd. I mean, the guy, he's got platinum ears, man. I mean, everything the guy ever touched was a hit record. So I was frustrated at that point. I was like, "Look, man, I'm done with this. If you're not going to take that chance and with all the other crap we got going on around here, the party all night Friday and then the gig Saturday sucks because you can't sing, or you're got to play or whatever. It just got frustrating for me, so I left the band and I formed a band called the Hurricanes, and we were playing like bluesy rock. It's like the Stevie Ray Vaughan era came out, and
Bane's Idol.
Yeah, man, he blew me away too, man. It changed my life. Right. Yeah. Nice. Right. Yeah, right. I mean, that's kind of how he hit me too, man. I'd been playing for a while when he came out, and it was like, oh my God, like what is this? Very much like for Hendrix for me. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, and I loved it, man. I mean, I couldn't get enough. That first album was just like every song was just killer. It's like, man, it's like okay, so basically started that band, and we had it was me on guitar, Rick Tremble on the bass, Billy Myers on the drums, and this guy Charlie Boley. He was paralyzed in the wheelchair. He's in a wheelchair, but he played the harmonica. So we had all this cool stuff going on, and we were starting to like make some pretty good inroads into the concert series around here. We ended up playing Delaware State Fair, open for Marshall Tucker Band, Delaware State Fair. That's a big gig, man. And then there was this club up in Wilmington called the Kahunaville. It was the Big Kahuna, whatever. And they had this big giant place called Kahunaville, and it was like they built the ballpark in Wilmington in the middle of this derelict old warehouse section of town. Right, there was nothing there but the ballpark and all these warehouses. Well, these guys get the brilliant idea, we're going to open this giant club in this warehouse here. It's right on the Christina River up there. So you didn't go into that part of town ever before, but now they got this big club there, So, and they would have these concerts. They would have these concerts on the river where they had a barge that was anchored to the dock, and it would rise and lower with the tide of the river, right? And they were set up the stage and all the sound system on the barge, and then the crowd was on land. And it was a cool setup, man. And a friend of mine, Mike Rantmeyer, he was the promoter. He was like the booking guy for that club at that time, and he liked us because we had our shit together. You know what I mean?
You showed up.
We showed up one time, right? Sober, right. And we got on stage quickly, and we got off stage quickly, right? And we kicked ass. When we got up there, we brought it. And like sometime in the middle of this time, we were playing this crazy, like one of these weird gigs we played was out east of Milford. I don't know what that place is called, but there was this restaurant out there, and they booked us to play, and there was like 5 people there. It was just like dead as hell. Well, this guy from the DC area had heard about our band, and he shows up, right? And he's like, "Hey, I play keyboards, I kind of like to sit in with you guys." So we're like, "What the hell?
5 people?
Bring it in." Yeah, like bring it in. So the guy sets his stuff up, and he plays with the band, and he's just killer, man. A guy named Joe Martone, and Joe's still actively playing in the DC area and Eastern Shore and Western Shore of Maryland. And killer organ player, piano player. Didn't play the synthesizer, all the keyboard players I knew played Flock of Seagulls and shit, you know what I mean? This guy played like a Hammond organ and the piano, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That sound that was in my head, he was playing it. So it took us to another level. And so we were doing these shows, like we opened for, I can't even remember them all. Charlie Daniels Band, Three Dog Night,
Wow.
Blue Oyster Cult,
I didn't know that.
Foghat. I'm going to say, oh God, I can't remember. I mean, a dozen or more of these shows where we were the opening act in front of, a couple thousand people.
Is this local?
It was in Wilmington. It was
Wilmington?
on the river in Wilmington.
That same warehouse park.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And so we were doing all these. Yeah, they're all dead. All those guys are dead. And that same thing is sort of happened with Leonard Skinner too. When Gary Rosington passed away, he was the last man standing, except for Ricky Medlock was a drummer. Like he was in the early stages of Skinner. He was a drummer for them. Then he left and formed Blackfoot. Now he's back as a guitar player for the last 20 years or whatever. So he's kind of like the last man standing, the last of the Mohicans, you know. Oh, cool. Yeah, great singer, great player, man. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw the
Yeah, right.
Doobie Brothers at a pet industry conference. They booked them for that. I was like, it's just the Doobie Brother. It's just one dude.
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, funny.
Hey, man, yep. Still, hey, God bless him, man.
Hey, it's like a cover band, but at the top highest level. Best equipment, best musicians.
I don't know. Doobie still have a couple, like Tom. What's his guy? Tom Johnson came back. He was like he sang all those songs.
Oh yeah,
he came back. He's back in the band now. Wow. And Patrick Simmons, he's original guy. I think maybe the bass player and the drummer or the keyboard or the percussionist are still original guys. So there's still enough guys there that's
Yeah. Cool. So then what?
What happened after that? Let me see. This is the Hurricanes, right? So I think I had like.
How old are you now, man?
I got to be in my 30s, I guess.
Already, yeah.
All right. And
half your life.
Yeah, right. Playing music, already. Right? Yeah. And so let me think what happened after that.
I want to know how you got the big gig.
Well, yeah, I think I was playing. I think the Hurricanes was kind of falling apart, and I was doing I had like a little trio thing. I'd been starting to do a solo thing, and once in a while we'd play a gig. Maybe the keyboard player left or whatever, and so we were just it was kind of a weird limbo period, and it was like 2001, I guess, or 2000 year. Yeah, 2000. My friends who had played with me in Hyde Park, or they were the sound man and the light man from Hyde Park, they had got this gig with Chubby Checker. And Scott was the road manager for Chubby, and Jimmy was like the bus driver and Val.
That's the bus driver out here, right?
Yeah.
The dude
right. He bus, right.
Yeah.
So they're Chubby's going through these guitar players like one after the other, like they won't stay, right? And Jimmy and Scott keep telling Chubby, "Hey, dude, you got to see our guy Joey, man. He knows that music. He's a great player. He's got good stage presence and the whole thing, and good dude. And like Chubby kept like pushing him off. He didn't like, he didn't want like a clique or whatever, 3 guys that knew each other or whatever.
Yeah.
So like they say, okay, he's doing this big cattle call audition at SIR Studio up in New York City. So I rode with them guys up there. They'd give me some videos and stuff, and I'd learned, half a dozen of the tunes or whatever that he played. And actually, I think I probably learned the whole set, like a whole whatever, everything, like 2-hour set or whatever. I learned all them songs. So we go up to this audition and walk in the place, and there's all these like famous people walking around. The guy from Everclear, a guitar player was there. The first guy I saw when I walked in, I'm like, hey, dude.
To audition?
No.
Just
they were recording. They were
recording,
rehearsing there.
What? Yeah. Okay.
So we go in, and there's maybe a dozen guys on the hook for guitar in this thing, and they're trying out saxophone players and guitar players at the same audition. So I get up to play. I'm prepared, to play the twist and all that shit, And Chubby's like, I started doing like a little riff, just checking my sound, He's like, what's that? And he's like, keep going. And then the whole band kind of kicked in on this little funky groove. And then Chubby was just kind of like freeform rapping over it. It was like really weird. And like, I don't think we ever really got to play a Chubby Checker song. You know what I mean?
That's funny.
So like I go, I do the audition, I hang around, I watch everyone else, try out and everything. And then turns out he didn't pick me. Right. So this is like November of 2000. So I go back, I'm, still playing around town with my trio and stuff. So it's, November, it's December. Now it's January 2001. And like, I'm with my girlfriend at the time, I'm sleeping at her house, and my little sister calls at like 6 a.m. She's like, I'm like, oh, this can't be good. Like, what's going on? She's like, Scotty is trying to get up with you. So give him a call. So she had a number. I called that number. They're in Orlando. And apparently they had hired this first guy, and he lasted like a month. And then they hired this second guy, and he lasted up till that day. He didn't show up for the bus call to take the trip down to Florida. Right. So they call me like at 6 a.m. and they're like, there's a plane ticket for you at 5 o'clock or whatever at Baltimore, BWI. If you want to come down here, bring a black pants, black shoes, black vest, and a white shirt, and bring your guitar. So I went home. I just busted ass home to the house. I put on the tapes, because I hadn't played the music in 2 months or whatever.
God damn.
And I just kind of went through it, like skimmed through it as quickly as I could. Got my shit together, and I drove to the airport, and I flew down there to Orlando International Airport. They picked me up in the tour bus. I was like, okay, Chubby Checker tour bus. Okay, this is getting better, So the gig is this like corporate party back when they had corporate parties. And I mean, it was a huge blowout, man. I mean, there was, a couple thousand people there, and they're all like, it was crazy thing. And we get up and I play the show, and, I did my best. I gave it my all. Some tunes he was calling tunes that I'd never even heard before.
Oh shit.
So I would like kind of just lay out until I figured out what was going on, and then jump in there, and he would point me at a guitar solo, and I play guitar solo or whatever. So now we're driving back after the gig. We're driving back on the bus back to Paoli. That's where Chubby lives, Paoli, Pennsylvania. And he comes and sits beside me and says, what do you think? You want the gig? I said, yeah, I'll take it, man. He said, it's yours. If you want the gig, it's yours. So I lasted till October of 2006.
So you played that gig 5 years?
Yeah.
Fucking hey, man.
So, I mean, he was going through a guitar player a month for a year. And I lasted. Here's the deal. This is what I think was the deal. This is how I approached it. And this is why I lasted so long. I think everyone else who got the gig thought, hey, I'm playing with Chubby Checker. I want to be a big star now. I'm going to show him my music, and he's going to help me get famous and all this stuff.
Stretch it out.
Well, he was not about that at all. So I showed up to the gig. I never played him one original song that I wrote. I never, not once, ever. I showed up for the gig with my shit pressed, my strings changed. I played the songs the way he wanted them. I never tried to inject anything into other, oh, we should do it this way. Nope, we did it all his way. And that's what he wanted. He just wanted somebody to come play the gig. And it was like the band was fucking intense, man. I mean, it was like, we were hitting. It was a hard hitting, up, like high energy thing. The whole band was like that. And that's what he wanted. He wanted that boom, 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 boom. And we played it. I played it that way. And I lasted a long time, man. I lasted like longer. I beat the average, I have to say.
That's big time. That's all that preparation work from working at the Tombstone.
Right.
Company,
Well,
right?
yeah, just right. And like and knowing what the gig was the most important thing. You're supporting him. Do what he wants you to do. I never said, "Oh, I'm gonna be famous because of this gig." I was just happy to be touring, I mean. With that gig, I went from playing in the club scene here to I played in every state in the country, including Alaska and Hawaii. We went all through Canada, played every province in Canada.
Chubby Checker.
Went to Ireland, went to Australia, went to Mexico. I mean, it was like the dream of a lifetime. You know what I mean? Other than the pay, the pay wasn't that great. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you got it, but how long would you go on tour for at a time?
Well, it depended. We would do it. It wasn't like you were constantly working. It wasn't like you're going on a 3-month tour and then hitting every city and coming back and being off. So we'd be out for 3 weeks at a time sometimes, but we also might fly to California and play a show and come back.
Wow.
It was the monkey shit method of tour booking. You just let the monkey throw the shit on the map, and that's where we're going. Yeah. You know what I mean? Sometimes it was like that, But I mean, I got to go some places that I would never have seen otherwise. You know what I mean? By being in that band, and then another added benefit was we were doing all these shows with all the artists of that era. Everyone that was alive. I met Chuck Berry. Big guitar hero of mine. One of my first guitar heroes was probably Chuck Berry. Learning. And then, Bo Diddley. I met Little Richard.
Damn.
I met. No kidding, man. Met Mary Wells and all these, from the Supremes, and dude, man, he was definitely on, man. It was like like we're in the same dressing room area, and I poked my head in there, and he's like, "What you doing, honey? You want a picture with Little Richard? You want a picture with Little Richard? Come here, honey. Come here, sugar." And like, it's too funny, man. And I got him somewhere. I got to dig him out. I don't really live and I kind of live looking forward, but I got all these photos. I got to dig them out sometime. But I got a picture of Little Richard. I got me and Bo Diddley, Chuck Berry, and I. It was funny when Chuck Berry was a good one. It was we were playing the Pennsylvania governor's inaugural. Ed Rendell was the governor of Pennsylvania and became the governor, and he was doing the inaugural the ball or whatever in Harrisburg. So we go to this gig, and I walk in there, and there's like, God, what's the guy's name? He's like a huge composer, producer, Michael. Shit, I'll think of it in a minute. But he's like got this like all-star band. J.R. Richardson, Greg Fillinganes, Nathan East on the bass. All these guys. I mean, I've seen their names on all these records. I mean, like, oh my God, shit. So they're backing up all these artists, but Chubby insisted on us playing. He wanted his band, not their band, So I'm in like heaven, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Chuck Berry's, on the bill, and he comes in and he was walking into the dressing room. I'm like, fucking Chuck Berry, man. Like, like, it's like, I got to do it, man. I said, hey, man, can I get a picture with you? And he's like, hurry up. Like it was real gruff. So I had my camera, boom. I was like, boom, got it, boom. And I said, hey, man, I think I owe you some money. And he looked at me like, I said, for the guitar lessons. And he chuckled, man. I got a laugh out of Chuck Berry, man. It was great. And that's a great picture I got laying around somewhere too. I got to dig it out. But so that was kind of a cool added benefit of that gig, man. It was like, I ended up in these places with the top stars of music, and not only music, but like all these famous people would come to these shows. I met like Vander Holyfield. I met all these boxers and stuff. We played this one show. It was Phoenix, Arizona, and it was a big benefit for like childhood cancer or something, the children's hospital there or something like that. And it was like a who's who of sports and film and movies and TV and music and all stuff. I walked in this place. I'm like, oh my God, that's Chevy Chase. That's Gloria Estefan. Right? That's all these people, It was like a crazy, crazy gig, man. And I ended up like, I'd be sitting there like, you got to act like you belong there. You know what I mean? Like you can't go, oh my God. It's a Boo Derek, oh my God, like go freak out, like so it was just like just maintaining your composure around all these, like, geez, man, there's freaking Emmett Smith, like all these people, sports stars and stuff. It was crazy, man. Yeah. It was a cool gig.
You think you did it for like 5 years?
Yeah, yep.
What do you think you learned anything doing it?
Of course, a lot about it wasn't the most musically challenging gig because they're all 3-chord songs or 4-chord songs or whatever, but the intensity that he wanted, that was a good, like, where you keep that crowd up, you keep it up, boom 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 boom, then you hit them, boom, with the tearjerker, and then boom boom boom, you hit them again, the kind of pacing of the music. And another thing was, like, he was an entertainer, man. Chubby would dance with every woman in the place. I mean, we do the twist for 30 minutes sometimes. He's like, every woman in the place, they'd be coming up and like, hugging on him and everything. And I mean, he had so much energy. It's like you couldn't help but like, okay, I've got to match that energy, his energy or whatever. So that was always good. And then there's a lot of things about touring like that some people get it and some people don't, man. And the one thing that you got to remember is when you're on a tour bus with 7, 8 guys, you got to have a small footprint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True, yeah.
You can't bring like 40 freaking bags with you. Bring the shit you need. And when you eat something, clean up after yourself. Compact your trash. You know what I mean? Like,
leave no trace.
Well, no, it's basically like there's eight of us. We're all using the same trash can. Compact your shit and put it in there. So you don't want a big overflowing bunch of crap, and like you don't want to be the Japanese say the nail that sticks out gets hammered. You know what I mean? You don't want to be the sticks out, So it was very educational in that field too, because you're you're living in that bus with 7 other guys, and it was not a challenge for me. I'm not a I get it.
What about like all those musicians you're touring with and everything? I mean, did you ever get a chance, like, hey man, was it in and out, or do you have a chance to, like, hey, we're gonna jam, we're gonna fuck off, or whatever,
well,
like on the side?
And that was another thing about that band was like I had never had a gig where I had never in any musical situation where we played jazz, and all the musicians that played with him were like really jazzers. Their main thing that they wanted to play. If they had their druthers, they would be playing jazz. The bass player, keyboard player, saxophone player, drummer, they were all like stone jazzers, like either bebop or fusion jazz, fusion jazz. So we'd get into some of these like sound check jam sessions that I was like lost, man. You know what I mean? So I probably did more woodshedding to do sound check than I did for the gig itself. You know what I mean? Like I would go home and go, what was the heck? What did you see? We just playing some weird freaking like flatted fifth, dominant seventh thing chord thing. So I tried to catch up with them guys, but they would leave me in the dust pretty quickly, with the chord. They were playing through changes. I'm like, what the heck was that? That's not 1-4. It's not 1-4-5. Like, come on, man.
Did he hold on to pretty much the same rest of the guys, or were there other guys?
Yeah, we went through. No. It went that band. The saxophone player that got picked during that audition lasted maybe a year, and then he got another guy, and that guy lasted pretty much through my tenure.
Yeah,
and the bass player was the musical director, and he was there the whole time. Drummer, we had a couple drummers, but one guy, Toby, he was pretty much the drummer for most of the time. And the keyboard player, JB, I think he's still touring with Chubby.
Wow. Chubby was still touring.
Jake passed away. Jake passed away a few years back. He was the bass player, music director. And then JB, I think, is still, when Chubby's playing, he's touring with Chubby. We're still.
Would you do it again right now?
I had a lot of fun, and the thing about it was I would love to tour again, but I would only want to do it if I'm promoting my own music.
All right.
I mean, because the pay was not that great, and there was, you're playing his stuff, and God bless him, and I would.
When you got a boss.
Well, right.
That sucks.
I'd rather do promote my own thing at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We got it. I mean, we're running over. Joey's got a record or something coming up, man.
Yeah, I got a recording.
Like, how'd you bring it back to? So what happened when that ended? Did you came back?
Yeah. During that time period, like we would have a lot of time off, right? So I'd be off a weekend. I'd be getting. When I wasn't working with Chubby, I was just getting Pennsylvania unemployment. It's the first time my whole life I had unemployment. You know what I mean? So
that's funny.
So I didn't have to worry about money every go gigging and stuff. So, but during that time period, like if I know I had this time off, I would book gigs and I would, either doing the trio or doing a solo or thing like that. And then the Billy and Rick had gone and played with this other guy, Chris McAfee. And they were, and this another guy named Brian, and they had a band called Night Street, and they were playing like Cat's Eye Pub in Fells Point and some other stuff like that. A couple of clubs in Dover, they would come around here every once in a while. But if I was off from touring, I would go over and take my amp and a guitar and sit in with these guys, right? So I'd played with Rick and Billy in the Hurricanes, so we had a deep musical, bass, to draw from. And then Chris and we just had great chemistry right from the very beginning playing together. He's a really, dynamic singer and player, and but mainly blues. He wasn't very complicated. He's not a complicated, guitarist or whatever. But we had a good rapport, So when the Chubby thing, it was like October of 2006. So I'd been there, 5 years or whatever. And I think Chubby, I had gotten a pay raise for the whole group, I wrote him a letter and said, "Hey man, this guy's been working for you for 10 years and never got a raise, Even the fry guy at McDonald's gets a raise every year, you know what I mean?" So we kind of guilt shamed him into giving us a raise. So that lasted about a year, and I think he was looking for another band, I guess.
Oh man.
And in October, I remember because my house got broke into like on a Sunday or something like that, and then on a Wednesday I got fired. So it was like a bad week.
Yeah.
And so he had hired this other band out of like the Detroit area or whatever. They were already an existing band that did an oldies show, had a pretty dynamic saxophone player and all that. So he just got rid of, canned everybody that was current and got him a whole new band. And which at the time I was like ready, you know, I'd had enough, you know, and the pay wasn't that great, and you know, it would took up, you know, you tried to book around it, and then something would pop up, and I'd have to cancel gigs and stuff like that. It's just getting annoying or whatever.
Yeah.
So I had kind of put this band together in my head, you know. It was a Billy on the drums, Chris on guitar, and this friend of mine played in the trio, Greg Hawhey played the bass, and myself. And what I wanted was a band where everybody wrote original music, everybody sang, and everyone could sing harmony. So these guys all fit the bill. Greg was Greg is a super talented songwriter, bass player, and singer. And then you know, Chris and I had this really great dynamic together where we're trading off, you know, and he's got kind of a higher end singing voice than I do too. Now, Billy was a very strong drummer, and he could sing harmony, and he wrote a little bit of tunes too. And then I was working on original material and, you know, playing guitar and singing too. So we formed Nothin But Trouble, and that's my current band that I have now. But
and they rock. The other day,
you know, we put 2 albums out of original material, mostly original material. I think Billy picked a song that was a cover tune, but for one of his. But you know, we would each write 2 or 3 songs on the CD, you know. So, and it just took off, you know. We were playing, you know, playing steady, you know. And then I do the solo thing around it, you know, whatever the band's not playing. But we went through some personnel changes, you know. Billy got frustrated or whatever, and he left the band, and we ended up getting Bruce Benson, who is the drummer that we have now currently. And then at some point, Greg got married, and just his priorities changed, you know. And so we found it. Actually, we used Rick Tremble for a while on bass, and then we ended up getting a bass player that Bruce worked with for a long time, Steve Taylor. Steve was a very talented, like funk style, you know, slap pop kind of. He played that style, very dynamic, really good harmony singer and all that. So we kind of went through a couple changes like that, and ended up with just a killer band. I mean, it's one of those bands like the Cutters was. We go into a place and we got more fans when we leave than we came in with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It just never fails. So, and then like I call it, like, you come in, kick ass, and take names. You know what I mean? Like, you show up, you play your ass off, and leave them wanting more. You know what I mean? And so then like COVID hit, and you know, couldn't play. The guys are like, well, I don't really want to play. I was still I would, you know, do a distancing gig or whatever if I could pull it off, you know, because it was really my main source of income.
Played my backyard twice.
Yeah, right.
During COVID.
Yeah, right.
Came
That's
up
what I'm
for
saying.
in my backyard.
Right, right.
Hey, man, come on.
Yeah. So, and then at that time, that Steve it turned out Steve, the Taylor, the bass player, he had developed this carpal tunnel in like both hands, right? So he never said anything, and we would be playing these gigs, and I guess after an hour, half hour, an hour, his hands were numb, and but he never said anything. I wouldn't have like put him. You know what I mean, like if I'd have known, I certainly wouldn't have, you know, suggested he get surgery. But during COVID, he got surgery on both hands, so he's kind of out of the picture now for a little while. So we've been using a couple of local guys. Joe Geiger is he's a real super talented bass player. He played with the Brooklyn Bridge for a long time. It's the worst that could happen. That was a big 60s tune, big hit. He played with that band for a long time and then retired here and is more active than he ever was playing bass. And plays with Alicia Maxwell Project, and he played on my CD, my original CD. We use him every once in a while. And then this other guy, he retired here too. His name's Jan Zukowski. He was 32 years in the Nighthawks. They were like the premier like DC area blues
Blues
band.
band. Yeah.
They were like, you name it, they played with them at some point or another. Muddy Waters. He's he's gigging with us now and some other bands. He fills in with a bunch of other bands too, but he's kind of our main guy right now. On his Facebook page every week, man, he's like posted a picture. This is us with Muddy Waters. This is us with Greg Allman.
Yeah.
Nighthawks with Stevie Ray Vaughan. Nighthawks with Billy Joel and Christy Brinkley. You know what I mean? Like he's got all kind of stuff going on. And he played at Live Aid with George Thorogood.
Wow.
And I was like, man, that had to be crazy. He said it was like insane. Like
That's the one in Philly.
Yeah.
Big Philly. Yeah.
Philly and Wembley, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He was at Philly with George Thorogood. I said, how'd you get that gig? And he said his record company or booking agent was the same as George Thorogood's. And okay, that Live Aid, I believe, was like pre-cell phone, right? So George Thorogood was on this like hiatus from touring or whatever. So his band kind of went on vacation, and his bass player he went over. He was in Europe somewhere, like incommunicado, and could get a hold of him, and the opportunity to play Live Aid came up, and they couldn't reach the bass player for George, and so the guy, his booking agent, said, "Let me call Jan. Jan's very talented. He knows a bunch of songs." And so he ended up. Oh, no kidding, man! Like I missed freaking Live Aid. Are you kidding me? Like wow. Like yeah.
Yeah. Well, I came out here in 11, and I met you like right away because I love music, and met you just kind of hanging around at music. I wish we could tell the Cat's Eye Pub story because it's funny as shit. Right?
I'll tell it. I don't mind.
If you want to, yeah, go ahead. Real quick.
So Johan shows up at the Cat's Eye Pub. Cat's Eye Pub's in Fells Point, and it's this little.
Baltimore.
Baltimore, Maryland. It's this little kind of hole in the wall bar, but they consistently win every year Baltimore Magazine best live music venue in Baltimore because of their lineup. The music that they have is just like everyone who's the top guys play there, So we would play there before COVID. The band played there once a month, Friday night and Saturday afternoon for 13 years before COVID. So one day, Johan shows up at Cat's Eye Pub, like, "Oh, cool, man. What are you doing, dude?" Like 5-5 and whatever. So we playing our set, and like, I don't know, a half hour later, this big smell of skunky weed comes drifting through the bar. Like, it's like, "Man, you smell that shit?" It's like, I mean, it was some serious skunk bud, man. And like 30 seconds later, the bouncer comes by with Johan by the collar, marching him out, and he's like, looks at me, "Gotta go, man." I guess he just fired up in the back room of the bar, and they spilled the whole place of fucking skunky bud smoke. And then you can't smoke inside anything, not even
the smoking area,
and especially weed. Yeah. But man, I'll never forget that, man. Like, damn, somebody's got some skunky bud. It's Johan, man. Like they put him out, man. They had him by the collar and were giving him the heave-ho out there.
That was pretty fresh. That was pretty fresh from California. That was okay out there. I thought it was all cool.
Yeah, it was a funny day, man. That was funny.
City. So yeah, so real quick, like then when I moved here, you were also working. You had a gig at the music shop. Right?
Yeah, I worked for B&B Music like part-time. I worked there part-time as a delivery driver for like 4 years. And then I was thinking, like, shit, I'm getting older. I should get a job where I've got some benefits or healthcare and 401k or something, like do something responsible as a responsible adult, God forbid, So I'd worked at B&B Music part-time, and then I applied for a job at Paul Reed Smith as a, guitar builder or whatever. And I guess I asked for too much money, whatever. They didn't hire me. So they took me, had a meeting and said, "Hey, why didn't you apply here?" I'm like, "I already got a job here." You know what I mean? So they're like, "Well, we want to take you on as a guitar repair guy still drive 2 days a week, and then do sales too. So I worked there for 10 years, you know, at the music store doing repairs and stuff, and gigging still, gigging. But now the thing that happened was, like, that's another gig where there was just not a lot of room for advancement there, you know what I mean, money wise. And I was just getting frustrated. I'm making more money on the gigs than they're paying me for the week, but I have to ask them for time off to go do the gigs, you know what I mean? So yeah, and it was like, it was getting to the point where they were frustrated with me, and I was pretty frustrated with them. So I decided it was like May of 2019, I decided I'm going to open my own business, teaching and repairs, and then I can gig as much as I want,
Yeah.
So,
making the jump is hard, though.
So
I remember when you were talking about it.
Yeah, I got my LLC in May, and then I got my Delaware State business license on a Wednesday. I went to work on that Saturday. I was going to give my 2 weeks notice, after I got my business license. And I was starting to take in students at night after work, and taking in repairs and stuff. I'm doing them on my own time. And then, so like the end of the day, that Saturday, I go to find the boss, and he had left early. All the managers had left early. And I was like fucking pissed off, because I'd psyched myself up all day, I'm going to give my 2 weeks notice today, So I got denied. And then I get an email or a text on Sunday. The company-wide meeting Monday at 8 a.m. Must attend, right? So I show up. This is an hour earlier than we typically get to work. So show up early, sitting there, and all of a sudden the boss comes down. He puts his book on the table or on the counter, and like looks around, big heavy sigh, said, "I've sold B&B Music." I was like, could have knocked me over with a feather, man.
Perfect timing, man.
Hey, man, I couldn't have had better timing if I knew it was coming. You know what I mean? Like,
that's like right time for sure, man.
So it worked out. Like, he offered everyone and said, if you stay, through the transition period, we'll give you like 4 months of health care, 4 months of your 401k, a little severance and all that stuff. So I ended up staying until it was like 2 months more than transition through the transition. So I ended up getting this cushion. When I started my own business, I had several months of health care I didn't have to pay for, several months of 401k I didn't have to pay to. So it kind of worked out good for me. If I'd have quit on Saturday, I wouldn't have had none of that shit. You know what I mean? So someday was looking. But so that was like May of 2019, and then like January of 2020, this COVID shit hit.
Yeah, that's rough, man.
And so I was just getting started when that happened. And thankfully, I lost all my gigs during COVID. Couldn't play anywhere. Everything was pretty much shut down. I lost all my students because you couldn't do in-person students, right? And I tried to do the Zoom thing, and my computer skills are not that great. So it was just not working out,
That's why we're here on location.
Yeah, right. But the thing that saved me was the repair side of the business. So I have this 3-prong attack in my business. I have lessons, instrument repair, and then the gigs, right? So I lost all my gigs. I lost all my students, but the repair thing kind of kicked in. And the first wave of it was all these musicians thought, hey, I'm going to have a month off, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to get this, new refret done and all this stuff. So I did like all these big, heavy repairs. Like that first couple of months was like all this real heavy repair stuff, a lot of refrets and like refinishing and stuff like that. Like, so then like the second wave was all these guys had been sitting around for 5 months or 6 months. Like, oh shit, I'm bored to tears, man. I dug the guitar out of the closet and the pots are scratchy and it needs strings. So I did like a whole wave of that. So this was like 6 or 7 months into COVID, and then they started relaxing the restrictions around here a little bit, and like the touchdown opened back up, like with 30% capacity. But they said, "Hey, come back and play. We'll pay you your full pay." They were super great to me. They always have been, really. But they were like, "We know you're hurting, so come back." And they paid me when they're with a mask on and all that shit going on. And then there was a guy, Ron Lockerman. He's a kind of local character cat, and
Local character.
he has
That's
this.
awesome.
He was having these like driveway parties. Like I would set up in the garage, and then everyone would be out in the driveway, social distancing, as much as they felt comfortable with. So he put me to, he gave me a couple of gigs. Like he called me up, hey, what are you doing this Friday? Well, it's COVID, man. I'm not doing shit, man. You know what I mean? Like, well, come to the house and play, and he paid me and I got tips and all that stuff. So kind of got through that. Now the smartest thing I ever did was when I went to work for B&B, I was still gigging. I never said, oh, I'm going to slow down on my gigs, right? I just kept gigging and working full time and gigging full time. And I was just putting that money in the bank. So when COVID hit, I looked at my bank account and said, you got a cushion. You're nothing, don't have to do anything desperate. You know what I mean? So I really hardly ever even touched it through COVID between the repair work and stuff. So it was quite a trying time, but I got through it. I was still in the black. And when, as soon as the gigs ramped up, things went nuts for me, man.
That's it.
I'm playing right now. I'm still playing. I teach Mondays and Tuesdays. I take those days and do repairs during the downtime. And then whatever free time I have, I do repairs. But I'm gigging. I have a regular gigs Wednesday at Touchdown every week. The Blues Jam is Thursday. I like to attend that as much as I can. And then I'm gigging Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'm playing 5 nights a week, sometimes 2. Like this week, I played 2 do a double on Saturday. And so, I mean, that's how it's been since, COVID, got back after or post-COVID, I guess we call it. So I've been just humping, man.
And living a dream.
And during COVID, I put an album out too. I have 10 original songs, some of them from the Hurricanes era that I never really got to record. It's right now I have them available in a physical, like a CD or a USB card. It looks like a little business card, but the USB pops out of it, and you can put it in your computer or your car or whatever. On my website at FulkersonMusicServices.com.
I'll put it on the description too.
And then there's also I'm not on any of the. You can also download from my FulkersonMusicServices.com. You can download the full album off of that
there
too.
You go.
But I'm not on Spotify or Pandora or anything like that. And I have an aversion to them because they don't pay for shit.
Shane got some downloads on Spotify. Well,
how much money did you make? That's what I want to know. Right. and you know what? I mean, we're laughing about that. Yeah, right. It's criminal.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's criminal. Now think about this, right? This is why I'm not putting my songs on there, honestly, man. That's the way you kind of have to play the game to get out there or whatever. But if back in the day, in the 70s or whatever, 70s and 80s, you said 90,000, you had 90,000 singles, sold 90,000 singles. If you sold 90,000 45s back in the day, you made $70,000.
Yeah, 10% on the way to a gold record.
You could buy a house, or well, right. I mean that. You know what I mean? Now you've got 90,000 streams. That's a single, right? And you made $19. That's freaking criminal, man.
It's true.
It's criminal. There needs to be some changes made there, man. It's worse. That's worse than any contract that was signed in the 40s, the 30s, or 40s, where the artists just got ripped off completely. They still made 25 cents a record or whatever. They had money coming in. You have no money coming in. They have no, other than coming up with the system, the algorithm thing. They've done nothing. They're not creative.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? They have no creative content at all other than the distribution of it.
That's a common.
What about
the common thing?
It should be at the minimum 50-50 to artists, to them. Realistically, it should be 75 25 to the artist, 75 to the artist for the content creator. You know what I mean? They create no content. They're using your hard work, my money I spent, my time
You
to
even do
record.
you even do the uploading.
Right.
You do all the legwork.
Right. You do all the You do all the work, and they make all the money. It's like it rubs me the wrong way, man. I'm sorry.
Merchandise. Yeah, it's
Thank you,
amazing to be able to like.
I've been really blessed, man. Really, I've been blessed, really.
That's why.
And then like this crazy thing, like this thing came out of nowhere. Like I guess like the Delaware Rock and Roll Society Hall of Fame thing. I guess they inducted some of my friends, right? Mike Hines and the Look, and Saul Knopf. These guys are, super talented entertainers and songwriters and stuff. And they were asking them guys, and who would you suggest that we like look at for, inducting in? And all of them said Joey Fulkerson. Like they called me up. They said, "Hey man, well, you just put a good word in for you, So be looking for it." So yeah, it was cool, man.
That was awesome.
And now it's a funny story too. I'll just tell it because the year before, the 2023, I guess it was, I'm playing a gig with the band with Nothin But Trouble at Bethany Blues in Lewis. And one of the guys that's on the board for the Rock and Roll Society comes up to me and says, "Hey man, what are you doing on October 20th? Or something like that, whatever the date was." I was like, I probably got a gig, but what's going on? He's like, "We want to induct you into the Hall of Fame." And I'm like, "Oh wow." So, well, but I was like, "Wow, that's great." I was just like swelled up with pride and everything, but so like I told, my girlfriend, and I told the band and stuff, and I was like, "I want you guys to come play with me." Thank God I didn't get on Facebook and go, "Guess what?" Because like a month, 2 months later, I'm like, I text the guy, I'm like, "Is there some kind of like announcement thing that they make or something like that?" And he texts me back, "Oh, we're having a meeting on Tuesday or Friday or something like that. I'll get back with you." So like the following Monday, he texts me, "You're not going to be in this year." I'm like, "Oh shit!" like, whoops.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. So of course, I was disappointed. Well, who wouldn't be? What I mean? But I said, "You're top of the list next year." I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay." Checks in the mail.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So I was like, thank God I didn't get on Facebook and go, "Guess what, man? I'm going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame." And because I was embarrassed just by having to tell my family and friends, "Hey, man, not happening. Not happening this year." I'm like, but then the next year they called me and said, "Hey, we want you in." So, and it was fun, man. It was a trip, man. The band walked out on stage and there was a roar in the crowd. It was like, and the lady, Paula, she's the president of the Blues Society or the Rock and Roll Society. She's like giving the, my background and the speech and all that. And I come out and the crowd went nuts. She said, "I think they like him." Yeah, it was fun, man. It was a big charge for us, man. It was fun to play with my brothers in the band. They said they were there to support me on my special day. And there was the other people got inducted in this class were super talented too, man. I mean, some of them I knew and some of them I had never met before. So it was great to meet everybody, kind of make a connection with some new cats too, It was fun.
Boy, man.
And that's where we are today, man. That's what
I appreciate the time, man. We've been trying to coordinate this for a while. So, and when Joey says it's not good with the computer, that includes text messaging. It's hard to track him down, man. So,
I'm busy.
I don't know what happened to Shane there, but I'll close it out, man. There he is. So, yeah, it's an awesome story. You should be proud. You should be super proud that you are like you're doing it. You're making a living playing music. The other musicians that we've had on there, they say the same thing. They're like, "Hey, man, I'm doing it. And not everybody can say that."
There's success and there's famous, and I'd rather be successfully working than famous. You know what I mean?
For sure. So yeah, we appreciate it. We'll definitely put that.
Well, thank you guys.
There.
Thanks for thinking of me.
Maybe you can get some downloads.
Hey, man, it's been out about a year and a half now, so it's kind of petering out right now.
Yeah.
I still sell, one or two at a gig every now and then.
All right. And I'll see you at a gig.
All right.
Maybe you'll smell me coming.
Good seeing you, Shane. Hey, man, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks, man. All right, Shane. Yeah, wait.
See ya.
All right.